Hello and welcome back to the Mind and Money podcast. I'm Sherry, a financial coach.
And I'm Val, a financial planner. And we are talking about today how savings can save us, how being broke can also keep you broke. But the examples that Sherry was sharing earlier, which really resonated with me, is in the example of something like your water heater crapping out or dying, and how if you don't have the funds for it to purchase it outright, you usually go with something in Canada. It's Reliance, where you rent it potentially. So every month it costs you. And I will tell you, I have come across some like 30-year-old water heaters that have been rented for months. You have long paid for that if you had bought it.
And we replaced our water heater, time is weird, but probably 4 years ago. And don't think I didn't do the math, because there's advantages to renting, right? If you're renting, if it just craps out, you get somebody to come and fix it and you don't pay for it, but also you don't have control over the people that come and repair it. And that kind of ties your hands sometimes too.
Right, because you are at their mercy. Because if you bring someone else in, I think that voids a lot in the contract.
I think so. I don't know. We've been lucky. We didn't have a rental when we purchased this place. So I ran the costs, and even at, I think, a water heater, Google told me that it was like a 10 to 12 year lifespan, and we had it much longer than that. But even at the 10 to 12 year lifespan, the rental costs more than buying it and gives you less control. Then adds the cost of initially buying it, of course, but also then you're responsible for the repair. So if you don't have any money in savings and you don't feel like you're managing your money in a good way, or if you're not managing your money, you're in avoidance mode, it can often just lead to, okay, I can afford $35 a month for the rental. That's easier to absorb than the thousands of dollars that it costs to have a new one purchased and put into your home. So there's pluses and minuses, but definitely costs more in the long run to rent in the water heater situation in almost all cases, unless you get a lemon.
And part of that too comes down to doing a little research, calling around, seeing what a water heater would cost to have installed. Because I find sometimes when things that go less often, such as a water heater, ideally, I was pleasantly surprised that it costs less than I thought it was going to cost. So find out a true number instead of just assuming that you have to rent, and see what that looks like. Also with bigger appliances, see if there's any rebates. And I know that is very dependent on location, but look into that. And just like Sherry said there, what's easier to absorb in terms of cost is sometimes the route, more often than not, that we take. She put this in the sense of boots, I'll say like running shoes. So I was recently investing less in running shoes, like just whatever was cheap and fit. I was like, yeah, sure, that works. And then I actually got a pair of running shoes. And I'll admit, buying them, I was like, I don't want to spend this much on a set of running shoes.
They tell you that running is a low-cost fitness activity. They lied.
They lied. So I went and I spent more on it, but the goal and the idea around them is that they're going to last me longer. No different than boots. I'll use actually my rubber boots as example. I used to go to Home Hardware, get the cheap all black rubber boots, non-insulated. They would maybe last me a year or two before there was a hole in them. I went to a higher end like outdoor store, spent $65 on like neoprene or whatever they are, and I've gotten twice as much use out of them. And then I just cut them into ankle boots when the holes show up. It's super cute.
And this comes in a lot of situations, right? When you feel that your only option financially is to go the least expensive route with something, chances are in the long run, that is going to cost you more money. So if you're spending $40 on a pair of boots every year, but a pair of $60 boots can get you 2 years or 3 years, you're actually averaging less per year. And it costs less overall. But if you're only like, I can only part with $40 right now, I can't justify spending $60, $70 on a pair of boots, then I'm just going to...
It's like the cycle expires sooner.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot like that with clothes too. And don't even get me started on how fast fashion and how little people wear clothes before they get rid of them, because I'm really buy them and hang on to them. Even if they're not more expensive purchases initially, I'm just like, how can I maintain my clothes? And thinking about buying staple items that are going to have longevity to them. If you're like a fashion person, I'm no comments on any social media about my lack of fashion sense. I'm going for comfort here.
Practical comfort. Practical comfort.
And figuring out what things do I like, what
Yes.
things do I not like, what makes me comfortable, and then I tend to buy multiples of things. So we were talking last episode about sports bras, and I tried a couple out. I found one that I preferred, and then I returned the ones I didn't like and bought multiples of the ones that I do like, because one sports bra is not adequate for running when you're training for a half marathon.
It is not enough.
So figuring out what you like and just going with it and accepting that maybe it's going to cost a little more and planning accordingly for that. I'm trying to think of other situations where this applies to, but there's so many ways that you can get the quote unquote cheap option that isn't actually cheap in the long run.
On the flip side of the coin, though, there are a few things that I know I will buy cheap because of my use and responsibility with them. Such as...
I'm going to go with sunglasses.
Sunglasses. I will buy them cheap because of how, right there, lens down. They're usually just holding my hair back half the time. So I will buy them cheap at like $10 a pair or whatever it is. And I lost 2 pairs over the summer in the lake. I'm never getting those back. I hope someone snorkels them up. The one pair was really cute.
How did you lose them in the lake?
I was wearing them on top of my head and I went underwater. I shouldn't have. Yeah, I thought I could touch anyways. So
that's a good pivot. I never considered that when we started this episode, is knowing yourself.
Yes.
Is key to it. So if you leave, and this is going to be like a really weird example, but if you lose hair clips, like they're going out of style.
Bobby pins. Oh, baby.
Not going and buying. I saw somebody who left a hair clip at a yoga studio and then went back to get it and then was really mad that it was gone. I'm like, it's a hair clip. But then I looked at the type of hair clip. I'm like, oh.
How much was it?
I think it was like $35. If you are prone to lose specific items, don't go bougie with those items. Go low cost with your sunglasses, or your hair clips, or your
I love that. Don't go bougie, go budget.
There's sometimes to go bougie and sometimes to go budget.
Yes.
And if you only have the financial means to go budget, that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. If you're buying shoes at a chain store that are not, and you're running and you're training for a half marathon, if you're buying the low cost shoes, your feet are going to get angry and you are going to have to most likely replace them more often. And again, that adds the cost. And they're not all financial costs, right? With the running shoe example, the cost of injuring your foot and losing weeks potentially of training is going to be really hard when you get to that half marathon physically and mentally, because you haven't had the time to train and follow your training schedule if you have one. And it's just like, there's so many other ways that we could make this analogy. One of the bigger things too is I've had a couple of clients that have had sick pets, unfortunately, recently, and you're not going to not take your dog to the vet if you can tell that they're not well. But if you don't have any money put aside, maybe you're going to delay a little bit. Just like, maybe they're going to be okay. Or maybe you have to use your credit card and then you're paying 30% interest on that amount. Or maybe you're borrowing money from the vet, or you're not paying that bill, and then next time something happens with a pet, you're like, ooh, but I owe the vet $700, so I feel apprehensive about calling them because they're going to be like, yeah, you can bring your dog in, but you're going to have to pay that bill before we do anything. So there's just lots of different ways that adding expenses that are at the lower end are going to cost you more. Like if you are carrying debt and you're not paying your credit card bill because it doesn't fit in your budget to pay it, but then your car dies and you need a new car, you're going to pay up the wazoo for that car payment because they're going to charge you credit card interest rates on a car loan, which is thievery.
Yeah, sorry. I was just I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at
you're just like, where are you going with that?
Your dramatics, not dramatics, but just your.
I heard once that somebody was was paying 27% interest on a car loan.
That is the word highway robbery.
And they know that you're between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
If you live in an area like we live in, generally public transportation doesn't get you everywhere you need to go. And the public transportation takes way, way longer and doesn't run outside of certain hours. So really, you're landlocked in a lot of situations if you don't have a car. And yeah, there's so many predatory lenders out there that spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising and make you think that they're the solution, and they're not, because then you're so stuck.
So when it comes to the system, right? Because we were talking about this before the episode, it's like, yes, saving saves you. But if you're listening to this and going, well, I don't have savings, I'm never going to have savings. We need to go back to step one, which is having a system to manage your money in a smart way. And I think I want to touch on the point where you're like the highs and the lows. When we feel like we have money, you make a different decision for your pet at the vet. When you feel like you don't have money, the decision comes from a different place, or the energy that you're in making the decision comes from a different place. If we can stabilize the highs and the lows by having a system, we're coming from a more level place in making decisions with our finances, because finances are so much with emotions.
And so often I hear, especially with my ADHD clients, you're spending ebbs and flows with the bank account balance.
Yes.
And if you're an entrepreneur, this can be even bigger ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And this may sound ridiculous, but finding ways to make yourself feel broke when you're not actually broke by getting the money out of your account and putting it automatically to where you want it to go, and knowing that, this money is for the vet, this money is for car repair, this money is for me to save up to blow on something that's just for me. So figuring out what's going to work for you, but having that clarity. And I know, okay, I'm just going to say this. I believe in one financial rule. That's spending less than you make. And you can't know that you're spending less than you make unless you know what your income and your expenses are. And I know it's scary. You can't make changes with your money and stay in avoidance mode.
If nothing changes, nothing changes. And it's so scary, but it's so empowering, and it's doing it like I find, and this is why we do what we do. It's the accountability, and it's someone in your numbers with you. You don't have to go at it alone. You don't have to tackle the juncture or organization on your own. You don't have to tackle the finances on your own. We're here to help you, or another trusted professional, depending on where you are. But know your expenses and know your income.
You're not too big of a mess. In the last week, I've actually had 2 conversations with clients and potential clients, and they're like, I don't know if you can help me. I think I'm too big of a mess.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't get into, there's not prep work before the free consultation. It's just a conversation where maybe you share some information with me. And the pieces of information that I was picking up from both of those potential clients is like, no, you are so far from the biggest challenge that I will have helped somebody with financially. And we build ourselves up to be like, oh my God, no, I'm the hottest mess out there. There's no help for me. But
it's a lot of that shame, right? The emotions, the mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, embarrassment. I think embarrassment and shame came up a lot of times in both of those conversations too.
Yeah.
It's like asking somebody for help it's a lot, but if you've been trying on your own, yes, if you're not ready to ask for help, I encourage you to go back to listen to the other podcast episodes, go and check out my blog and grab some free resources. But there is a way out, and that's through, no matter where you're at, getting some clarity with your numbers. And even if you're in the back of your head, you're like, I know it's an income problem. I know I need to make more money, but how much more money?
Yes.
If you know you don't have enough to pay your bills every month, but you're not looking at your money, so you're not actually like making sure you're paying all your bills.
Right.
That clarity, I know you might think would feel overwhelming to be like, ooh, I got to make $500 more a month so that my budget is level. You might think that that's going to feel really overwhelming to know that, but in the back of your head, you're probably like, fuck, I probably need to make $1,500 to be even. Knowing where you're at, I always see that like being the first weight lifted from someone's shoulders. So have some savings, but getting some clarity with your money. And yes, that's probably going to involve just making minimum payments on your credit card debt for now, but that doesn't have to stay like that. So having a little bit of money set aside makes the financial challenges that come your way feel like they happen less, even if they don't actually happen less, because they hit different. So
we have less of this, we have more of this.
Yeah. And that first time that you need money for something and you have some money set aside for that thing, even if it's not enough, oh damn, that feels so empowering and inspiring. And then it's like that next push to be like, okay, how can I have a little bit more money in that account so that next time I'm better prepared? It's all just a work in progress, and You are capable of change. You're not too big of a hot mess.
No.
You can make changes with your finances and get to the place where you're able to actively make decisions based on what's best for you with your money versus shit, I'm just going to like rent that water heater because I know that that's the most achievable for me right now.
Right.
We circle back to the water heater.
We're back.
Yeah. So I know it's overwhelming to start, but it gets a little less overwhelming every time you go through it. And having some support and accountability, whether that's a partner, whether that's working with somebody like us, whether that's finding a group of people that are all working to change their money, that accountability can really help level things up when the going gets tough, which it typically does in the first 2 to 3 months. So you've got this. Ditch the shame. Stop trying to look backwards and wish you had done this, that, and the other thing. Just look forwards and figure out where you want to be in 6 months and what actions can you take to help get you there.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time on the Mind and Money Podcast.